Hey guys, hoping all is well with everyone. So in this video we're going to be continuing the read-along of The Secret Zoo, Secrets and Shadows by Brian Chick. And we're going to be continuing today with chapter 24. And as always, even though The Secret Zoo doesn't have too many pictures, I'll be showing any that we do come across. But as always, please feel free to follow along. Chapter 24, Back into the Water Park. On the other side of the curtain was a wall of water like the one they had touched in the elevator. After stepping onto it, Noah saw a point of light a few feet above his head. He swam to it and arrived in a small underwater cavern with smooth concrete walls. He realized he was somewhere inside the fabricated island in the water park exhibit. To one side was an opening. Noah swam through it and emerged in the channel of water beside the aquarium walls, his friends in front of him. Following Hannah's lead, the scouts hoisted themselves onto the island. The descender led them out of the exhibit, following the path of entry in reverse, through a hatch in the ceiling, then down the steps of the door that opened in the visitor area. They stepped into a walkway, their wet sneakers leaving tracks. Hannah indicated their backpacks on the floor. "Dry clothes?" The scouts nodded. Hannah's eyes passed over them and said, "You guys all right? You don't look so good." Standing with his arms crossed over his body and his hands clutching his elbows, Richie shivered. "I'm freezing." Hannah continued to look them over. Her bangs clung to her forehead, her clothes to her body. She worked the gum between her jaws, chewing slowly and deliberately. For a moment, nothing more than a few seconds, her stare softened. She seemed to feel something for the scouts. "I know you're cold," she said. "So am I. Crossing is tough. It's a huge responsibility, and it's not for the weak." She seemed to consider something and then added, "Think about the places you're going to be required to protect. As a crosser, you're going to need to know the inside and outs of our entire world. And I mean that literally." She paused and waited for the scouts to say something. When they didn't, she began to speak again, her thoughts and words coming more rapidly. "It took magic to create our world, a magic that's still alive and all around. Every day the secret society struggles to contain it, to understand it, to use it. Think about its power. Look at the city of species. Crossers are ready to die to keep that power from DeGraff." The scouts quietly listened. "I know that the secret society does important work, great work, but there are times when..." Her voice trailed off, and her gaze fell to the floor. Just when it seemed she'd forgotten her thought, she finished it. "There are times with many of us our world has never been created. Our civilization, it was born from madness and magic. Where does that put us? The four of you can walk away. You're not bound to this place. You're not bound by our burden." She became quiet, leaving a strange, empty space in the conversation that Noah dared to enter. "What divides your world from ours?" he asked. "Nothing. A thin layer of dirt." He paused, searched for the right words, and found them. "In facing your problems, we only face our own." Behind him, the scouts nodded. The descender shifted uneasily. She popped a bubble, turned, and walked off. At the door to the room with the built-in steps, she stopped and swung around. "Look, you have to understand something. We can't permit you to fail. If you fail, we fail. All of us. And we've worked too hard for that to happen." Understanding this, the scouts nodded again. "You kids are from the outside. Outsiders are weak, and there's weakness. There's danger." She paused. "But Darby sees something in you, that's for sure. And I admit that old man has a good eye for stuff. And for people, too." She left another awkward silence, a silence that Noah filled with a question he had been wanting to ask for a long time. "Hannah." "Yeah?" "Those boots," he pointed to her feet. "You're always wearing them. And they're just so strange." Hannah stared move across the four scouts. She breathed out a small pink bubble that burst against her lips. With a quick lap of her tongue, she wiped her mouth clean. "They're just boots. I wear them 'cause I like them." She turned and climbed the steps. The scouts heard her footsteps across the ceiling. Then they watched her fall from the hatch onto the island. She glanced at the scouts and casually dropped into the pool to the gateway that would take her home. "They're not just boots," Noah said. "Hannah's not telling us everything. "The Descenders. They're hiding something from us." Megan nodded. "Yeah, I get the same feeling." The scouts said nothing else. They grabbed their backpacks, rummaged inside for dry clothes, changed in the exhibit's bathrooms, then stepped out of the water park into the early darkness. As they walked across the cold zoo landscape, their eyes scanned the dark surroundings for signs of movement, signs of the shadowist. They kept quiet, their thoughts turned into the mounting strangeness and mystery of the secret zoo. Chapter 25. Words from a Dictionary. After their adventure at the water park, life went back to normal for the scouts for a week. In school, they tried to focus on their work and steer clear of Wide Walt, who was surely planning some type of retribution for the cafeteria incident. At home, they spent the evenings hanging out in Fort Scout, their conversations about the secret zoo and their next cross-training. They wondered about the Descenders, worried about the Sasquatches, and guessed about the Grottoes. Thanksgiving came and went. On their walk home from school on Monday, the last day of November, the scouts were delivered another instant Marlowe when the kingfisher flew out of nowhere and perched on Noah's shoulder. The note asked if the scouts were available to cross-train on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. The scouts sent the note back with a "yes" response, then made plans for a Friday night sleepover at the Nowickies, which was rarely a problem with their parents. Ella often stayed with Megan and Richie Noah. On Saturday, the scouts could wake early and head to the zoo together. Now, it was almost midnight on Friday night. Noah and Megan's parents had retired to bed. The scouts were lounging around in their pajamas in the living room. Ella and Megan sat on the couch. Noah lay on the floor, and Richie sat all the way back in a large, pillowy recliner. In whispers, they were talking about the secret zoo. No one understood the butterflies Noah had seen in the grottos. Where exactly had they come from? Where did they go? And why were there so many tunnels? Did they all go to the secret zoo? If not, then where? They thought about the Descenders. What had moved inside Tamron's backpack? Why did Sam have zippers on his jacket beneath his arms? Why did Hannah have such strange boots? And why did the 4 teenagers resent the scouts so much? At one point, Richie struggled out of the deep cushions on his recliner and said, "Bathroom break. I'll be back." He left the room, then reappeared a few minutes later. As he strolled across the carpet, Ella said, "Honestly, Richie, those pajamas." Richie stopped and looked at his outfit. His shirt and pants were covered with miniature R2-D2s. "What's the matter? You got something against droids?" Ella smiled. "If we look up dork in the dictionary, I'm pretty sure we'll find your class picture." Richie happened to be near a bookcase when Ella said this. He scanned the books and then pulled out a thick dictionary. "Let's just see about that." He thumbed through the pages a few at a time, touched his finger to a place, and said, "Nope, no Richie." Then he flipped toward a bunch of pages. "But if we go here, yes, here's my picture. Under genius." The scouts laughed. "Look up Descender," Noah said. "Huh? Just look it up. Is it even a real word?" Richie turned to a page, read a few lines, then said weighty dictionary on the floor beside Noah. "Weird," he said. "Check it out." The scouts huddled around and read from the page. Descender. Noun. 1. In printing, the part of a lowercase letter that extends below the body. For example, in the letter Y, the descender is the tail, or that portion of the diagonal line which lies below the V created by the 2 converging lines. "Doesn't make much sense to me," Ella said. "We're talking people, not letters." "Agreed," said Richie. Noah lifted the dictionary up to Richie, who planted it back into the row of books. Around 1 o'clock in the morning, they decided to go upstairs to bed. As the girls slipped into Megan's room, the boys went into Noah's. Richie immediately fell asleep, but Noah didn't. He lay in bed, fitfully tossing and turning. He couldn't stop thinking about what had happened to him in the grottos. An hour passed, then another. Noah's bedside clock showed the time in glowing digits. 3:10. Noah finally dozed off and then woke, groggy and worried. The clock read 7:57. He angrily threw off the covers and went downstairs. He poured a bowl of cereal. Halfway through it, he became curious about the word descender again. What they'd read in the dictionary hadn't made sense. Not when it applied to people. A thought filled his head. He stopped crunching on the cereal and sat perfectly still, a bead of milk streaming down his chin. Maybe the scouts had focused on the wrong word. He jumped from the table and went to the bookcase in the living room. He pulled out the dictionary, sat on the couch, and started flipping through the pages. Instead of stopping on the word descender, he stopped on the word descend. Then he read from the page. Descend. Verb. To approach or pounce upon, especially in a greedy or hasty manner. To attack, especially with violence and suddenness. 2. To sink or come down from a certain intellectual, moral, or social standard. Noah tapped the page and stared off into space. He thumbed forward and found the word descender again. Once more, he read the definitions. These don't mean anything, he said to himself. They don't... He fell silent. A few of the words in the definition seemed to jump off the page. He read out aloud of the phrases that struck him as important. The part that extends below the body. The descender is the tail created by the two converging lines. He raised his eyes and stared at the wall. The part below the body. The tail. The definition undoubtedly referred to letters, but was it possible that the secret society was using it to refer to something else? Noah scanned the passage again. Like an animal's tail, he asked himself. He focused on the final words, created by the two converging lines, and remembered his first day of cross-training and how Tamron had mentioned that there were 2 lines of defense protecting the sector gateways, a line of humans and a line of animals. Each line had its own strengths. What if these 2 lines of defense could converge? What if the 2 species that protected the secret zoo could become one? With the intelligence of a human and the strength of an animal. Noah searched his thoughts for something meaningful, something relevant. 4 distant images came to him. Tamron's backpack, Hannah's long, bulky boots, the zippers and buckles on Sam's jacket, and the pin-sized holes in Solana's leather outfit. His heart began to hammer. He focused his gaze back on the dictionary. As he tried to locate descender on the page, he stumbled across another word, descendant. Could being a descender have something to do with being a descendant? No, Noah told himself. Descender and descendant? 2 different things. But weren't nicknames suggestive rather than literal? But a descendant of what? He asked himself. He thought of a short history of the secret zoo, not more than 100 years. What kind of ancestry could this blip in time include? Forget it, he told himself. He slammed the dictionary closed. You're overtired, making something out of nothing. Try to relax. But there was no way he was going to relax. Not now. Not until he had some answers about the descenders and who they really were. Not until he understood the Grottoes and their purpose. Noah checked the clock. 8:10. The scouts planned to leave for cross-train around 8:45, before Noah's parents normally woke. Maybe he could get to the zoo early and have another look at the Grottoes. This time he'd be more careful. This time he'd run down the tunnels, read the engravings on the plates, and then get out. He could leave a note with his friends telling them that he'd gone early to the zoo. Without another thought, he went upstairs and quickly got dressed in his bedroom, stepping over Richie in his sleeping bag as he walked between his dressers. Back downstairs, he put on his jacket and red cap and slipped into the garage. He grabbed his bike and silently stepped out the side door. He pedaled down the street, his thoughts on the Grottoes. At Walker's Boulevard, he turned right. As the Clarksville Zoo appeared in the dim morning light, Noah realized that in his haste he'd forgotten to leave his friends the note. And I'll stop the video there, ending chapter 25, but I hope you guys enjoyed that video, and we'll be continuing the Secret Zoo Secrets and Shadows with chapter 26 next time. But as always, guys, please take good care of yourselves, and I hope to see you really soon. Thank you so much for watching.